Welcome to the Inside Integration Podcast. My name is Chris, joined as always by my partner Jason.
What's up, everybody?
And today we are going to talk a little bit about, let's see, is it personalities in your business? Is it personalities in our industry? There's some thinking here about, separating people based on how willing they are to accept new things and technologies and all kinds of, good things with this industry, which is kind of a hallmark, right? Like we do this for a living.
Yeah, it kind of brings us back maybe to the conversation or a presentation that you and I sat through last year with the, kind of like the 5 key members of a team, and are they team players, and grading them on the scale of the lovable slacker, or like some of those gradients of personality traits for different people, and kind of their, I don't know how to put it, their outlook, or I think personality is probably not the right word to put it, but I think general outlook on things might be, or perception of certain things might be a better way to look at that. Whether it's processes, whether it's products, new disciplines, it's all the things that we talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to evolve your business. You've got to keep embracing change, make that a core value of your process, right? Because it's definitely going to change. And as soon as you figure you've got it, locked down, you're the, all of it, you became the weird car mechanic for that one brand of car.
Right.
Right?
You're your town's sob expert. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are servicing Saturns at an alarming rate, just to keep them on the road. But
yeah, I got a Saturn guy. All right.
Good. The Saturn Whisperer is definitely not an aspirational title or moniker to be pursuing. But thinking about the future and thinking about those categories, and circling back on an earlier show that we did where we talked about what one of the futurist guys that we listened to in Austin at the Samsung event, Mr. Zach Kass, had to share with us. And it was really interesting to hear kind of his outlook on that, or his classification of people, and whether they're his classifications or he's just commenting on sort of what futurists look like. I think there's a way to wrap some of that into kind of the personalities and the people that we work with every day. And kind of where that, where those personalities land, and maybe where those people live in the organization. Are they the right person for that job, kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know.
Because, yeah, and why don't you kind of describe those 3, because I think the spot that I'm getting to is the ideal situation is to be balanced, right? Like you
100%.
want a little bit of a balance here and different,
Yeah, you can't have a bunch of people that are looking for, I'm living in the tomorrow already today, and what's this piece of paper for? I can't pay attention to that. I'm living in the future, buddy. Like that doesn't really make any sense, right? But you could totally see where a bunch of like-minded individuals get totally waylaid into the self-fulfilling prophecy and the bias confirmation that is the death knell for an unbalanced business, right? So the 3 categories of person that he was talking about, this was related to the future. So maybe not directly related, but I think there's an association that we can draw here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these are not my names, so don't shoot the messenger.
Or sue. Please don't sue.
or sue. Please don't sue us. I mean, you put it on a Substack, so I feel like it's probably public domain. But for your futurist people, you really have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's a wholly registered trademark of whatever system he's probably selling somewhere.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. But it's great fodder for us to talk about. So with the future, you really have 3 categories of person. You have the Gloomer, which is somebody who's panicked about the future, hates everything that's new that's coming down the pipe, doesn't want anything to change. Might be a 51-year-old white guy that yells from his yard at kids going by on their bikes. It hasn't even got near the grass, but just letting them know to stay away from it.
We never approved the progress.
Exactly. We wanted to keep the future of video connections intact, and you ruined it for everybody. With the separate luminance and chrominance really sets new boundary for image fidelity.
Something far better, and a lovely package that will fall out of a device with no user interaction whatsoever.
Even better than HDMI does. It's a whole thing. Then you've got from the Gloomer, the pessimistic person. You've got the Zoomer. So you've got the person that is living in the future today. So we kind of talked about that a little bit, right? Where they've got the latest and greatest gadget. If there's an RFID chip that they can put in their arm to go to Safeway with, that's what they're doing. They've got Google Eyes, or what was it? Google Lens, glasses. Google Glass, Google Glasses. Did you remember seeing the guys at CEDIA walking around with blue pants on and those headwear and weird ticks?
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
And I'm not here to castigate anybody that may have some sort of physical or nervous issues, but that's really self-inflicted. I didn't really understand that.
Yeah. Hey, it got people talking.
Yeah, I still remember it. I think it was more the blue pants in my in my memory than the glasses so much, but that's a whole other story. Mm-hmm. So again, you've got your Zoomers living in the future, maybe not embracing or respecting some traditional boundaries or traditional ethos, but they're traditional for a reason, because they might be pillars.
Those are the guys in the company that are pushing to put all of your blueprints on an iPad. Right. That's your
right. Let's make sure it's in the cloud. Right. Let's make sure that you can get this on any device that you have in your hand, in your pocket, whatever it is. And the Gloomer might be panicked about the future, but chances are your Gloomer might be the anchor guy or anchor woman on your team that has all the logistics down, knows without kind of saying in a shorthand what you're going to need for that rough in, what you're going to need for those jobs. So, I don't want to put them necessarily in a negative light, but just that's kind of where these categories are. Mm-hmm. And then you've got a far, more finite resource, or far more rare person out of the three in this category. That's the Bloomer. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about, somebody's old undies. We're talking about the people that are creating new things, or thinking about new things, or looking at ways to take the new tools that are available and utilize it to bring the level up. And it was kind of funny to think, it was half an hour long presentation, and I don't think I've hung on somebody else's words tighter than that, in that short, narrow of a window of time, and had them be as impactful. Maybe it's just a true sign of my ADD, where that short, impactful chunk of information all registered with me or something. I'm not really sure, but it was kind of neat to hear somebody who thinks about that, works at a collegiate level and works in higher education, one of the founders of ChatGPT, et cetera, their perspective on the people that are in your organization, and, playing those strengths and weaknesses kind of against each other to your benefit, to your point, balance.
And there's room for everybody, right? I think so. If you've got a successful machine going, or you're building a successful machine, you need people in all of those roles, right? You probably need your comptroller or finance person to be a Gloomer, right? That person is going to prepare for the worst that could happen. They're not necessarily going to trust people to pay on time, right? So
right. They're hedging their bet to make sure that, you can meet payroll. Right. And you can pay your taxes at the end of the quarter every 3 months, and you can live a life where you're sleeping at night, right, and you're not being Spider-Man on the ceiling because you're so tripped out on your financial outlook.
And that's probably a good thing for project management as well, right? You've
agreed. I think you need to have that.
See every bad outcome that could possibly happen if you don't do things this way, right?
And what those outcomes cost. right?
Yes,
Like there's a cost
especially.
associated with all of this, you know, and I think that's the big one. You know, we talked before in our 5 minutes of conversation before
Show
we
prep.
started this podcast, which we call show prep. We kind of talked about like, you know, coaching people or you know, giving some people some advice, and we're not qualified to be life coaches or business coaches or any of those kinds of things, but we have seen some stuff out there. We have interacted with a few
Yeah.
successful organizations, and
I mean,
you know,
being able to, you know, to pivot all in a myriad times I've failed numerous in spectacular ways, all new each time.
sure,
I'm
yeah,
happy to share that.
new ways to step on your nuts. It's
It's
great.
true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can only take that dick shot so many times and, you know, in creative ways. Yes. But
Yeah, but, you know,
it is definitely a thing that these people have to be in it, and it goes back to the, you know, a couple of different books, right? Like the habits of highly successful people touches on this, and you know the man, why can't I remember the name? The five elements of a team. What is that? It's Patrick Lencioni book. I can't remember it. Everybody's
oh,
screaming at the radio right now.
yeah, the well, it's like the 5 key members of a team, right?
Yes.
But
Yes,
you know, there's
not in so many
the
words.
book that goes along with it, and there's a couple of just a couple of different versions of it. You know, we got to thank our mutual friend. We're going to call him our friend because Mr. Ari Supran's a pretty big deal. But you know, him sharing with that book with us and the context of those books with us at the Sonance sales meeting was impactful.
But the point is, though, it takes all kinds, right? Like you definitely need.
I agree.
You know,
Yeah, there's
you
no
need
question.
special seats, and again, so many books that touch on it, right? Like Good to Great is a good example. If you ever read Good to Great, it's about, you know, getting people on the bus and then figuring out what their seat is, right? So you screen for personality and intangibles and that sort of thing, and then get them in your org and figure out where they fit and make a role if they don't necessarily fit, right? Like make that whole. But that is one of the most important things, especially right now with the labor market, what it is. Everybody looking for people. It makes it real hard to do this.
Sorry, I was looking while you were talking there, and it does make it difficult to not have the right people on your team. But the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is the book that we're talking about with Patrick Lencioni. So if you've got, I don't know, I mean, you could read it in a plane ride. I think it's a pretty easy read.
Pretty easy read. It's a good engaging story too.
Yeah, it's a nice fictional account of a corporate boardroom that, you know, generally you'd kind of go, not maybe how I want to spend my 2.5 hours between here and Denver, but let's give it a go, because I think once you get into it, and if you're applying some of their examples to your life and to your team, you'll find probably pretty quickly that there actually is some pretty insightful knowledge to be gained from that one. So.
Yeah, and like everything else, different strokes for different folks. Your org's personality might dictate a different balance of this versus that. But
well, where does the Gloomer fit into your AV integration firm? Let's just kind of look at it from that perspective, right? Like,
so for a specific example, I would say your Gloomer needs to be like your principal, right? So in EOS, they call that the visionary. Right. So you've got a person who they know what they want this thing to be, and they know where they want to go. And that's the person who's out there like setting the seeds and coming up with the concepts. And then you also need somebody to turn that into reality. Right. Yeah. Like that's always the thing. And it's always, I don't know if maybe it's because I'm in a big business here for one of the first times, but a lot of times what you see is towards the top of the chain, you see a lot of bloomers or people who want to be bloomers that, they think all of their, they've been told that all of their ideas are wonderful and magnificent, and, somebody's going to give them a reality check.
Yeah. And they've been financially empowered to make some decisions and maybe have some stuff come good, right? So maybe you've got a proven track record of success, whatever that looks like. And I don't mean to throw it up in quotes, but I think success is all relative, regardless of whatever industry you're in. So let's just leave that where it is. But I think the bloomer and the creator, the leader, the visionary, the person that's got the brand identity and got the execution and the business plan. I think that's a very fair moniker to wear. Like, hey, you're the bloomer, you're the creative side. And I think, to your point, it's not like one person is just in one category either, right? Like you're blended between the three of these in a in a trinity. Like, where do you fit on that scale?
And if it's not, and it's not going to fit in, like a person is not going to be a 100% gloomer or a 100% bloomer.
Boy, I'm trying, dude. Just whatever. Let me go.
It's, you're not going to find that, right? Think about it like a pie graph, right? Like, okay, this person is 75% gloomer, right? Here's a person, practical applications and that kind of thing. And they're 25%,
right.
That's
risk averse, right? Yeah. Those are qualities that you're looking for in a small business. People that are reliable, that are risk averse, that want to do proven work and want to be able to execute on things and guarantee that they can execute. Like, those are the hallmarks of a successful business. You said you could do it. You can execute. You need Gloomers on your team. You need those guys badly.
Reel it back in, because otherwise it's just empty promises.
Yeah. And I don't. Yeah.
Who hasn't dealt with somebody like that?
Right. So if you get a nice blend of like 33, 33, 33, you've probably got perfect ratio for an employee. But you definitely need some people that are looking ahead to say, like, settle down, old man. We got this. This isn't that difficult. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to a training, or you're going to learn something new.
Well, and that's hopefully one of the people who will prevent you from reinventing the wheel, because that's a very, bloomers are absolutely prone to come up with an idea and then start working through how to implement it, and maybe not giving thought to somebody else trod this path before, because their view is so far over the horizon. That's where these things are all kind of complementary, right? Like, hey, we need we can absolutely digitize all of our documents. I'm just using AV examples here, but
sure.
We could absolutely digitize all of our stuff, and then all of our technicians, as long as they have an internet connection, they'll be able to get in it. They can see the PO, they can see what the blueprints are and the locations are and that kind of thing. Somebody needs to say, look, we don't need to go out and develop this. This already exists. This is Bluebeam. Or
right.
Hey, have you really considered how many technicians are going to drop the iPad out of the van accidentally when they open the door, right? Like, here's the push and pull of things, right?
Right.
That's what you need.
Yeah, you need your gloom to temper some of your bloom, which is a nice, sun rain metaphor for a nice garden. I think that's a great way to put a hippy dippy spin on all of this. Sorry, I'm excited because there's a flaming ball of gas in the sky up here in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with myself right now.
And it's yeah, I'm happy you're happy about that. I'm bored with the good weather.
As Scrooge McDuck swims around on his pile of gold coins, it's just it's hard to feel bad for you at all, Chris. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there.
My children were very disappointed that when we went for a hike yesterday, it was cloudy and overcast, and I could not have been happier, because I didn't have to slather my two pigs with sunscreen and make sure that they don't burn to a crisp. So, yeah,
right. They're fair skin boys. I guess that's how it goes.
No, one is I have an albino child, and
the clear one. That's right.
He's clear. He's see through. But yeah. Between my two sons, they make an average skin tone. So could not be happier about that.
Oh, that's good. Well, Just stand closer together, boys. You'll be fine.
It's true. It throws off. It's impossible to take pictures of them because it throws the white balance off. It's really just
Wow.
One child is either overexposed, the other child is always underexposed.
Man.
It's either O.J. Simpson on the cover of Time magazine or Casper the Friendly Ghost. There's no in between.
Man, I'm glad that your children will never hear this episode.
Not because they don't want to listen, but because they don't want to listen.
They definitely don't. They definitely don't want to listen to any of this. No, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, I think just to kind of summarize my thoughts on all of this, we're all embracing change. We talked about this in previous episodes. It does need to absolutely be a core value and a core tenet of what you're doing to be successful. That's the only coaching I feel like confident. Business coaching I feel confident in giving away for free, at least. We charge for that over here on the real world and on the not pirate ship part of our lives. But all joking aside, it's important to have balance out there. It's important to have an outlook that looks ahead to make sure that you are adapting to what's happening out there, and of course has the roots of the tree firmly planted in the dirt. Because if you have a team full of bloomers, you might be having a lot of fun, but chances are you're probably not going anywhere too fast, right? And then you obviously need to be able to execute with the Zoomers that are, hey, getting this, I'm learning this. I love that kind of energy. I wish I was one of those guys still, where I was stoked about learning how to program a new remote or trying to get my hands on a new AV receiver or a new whatever widget, just learning all the ins and outs of it. Man, if I could bottle up that energy and share that out, I would love to. But I think mine's all gone.
And this is one place where two things are complementary to each other, right? You've got your Gloomer and your Zoomer working hand in hand on a project, again, in custom integrator terms, right? You've got your project manager who's making sure that expectations are being set, that things are happening on time, that the schedule is going. But then you've got the Zoomer who wants to take as much time as possible to make that rack look absolutely beautiful, right? They'll spend hours measuring to make sure, that something is dead on to a nanometer, right?
Yep.
And those two forces pushing against each other are very healthy, because you really do have the best of both worlds, and each side has to try and pull the other a little bit closer to their side to get things like, good project schedules to encompass the time that this Zoomer wants to take to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect. And, on the other side, that Zoomer's got to realize, look, man, you've measured this thing 1 billion times. It's not going to change.
The cloud needs to come into the rack room, lightning comes out of it. Get your ass moving.
Right. And this is very healthy, right? And again, I'm no relationship expert, but I would imagine that, marriages probably work in a very similar way, right? You've got complementary personalities, right?
I wouldn't know. Sorry.
I would. My wife and I are, I'm not going to call my wife a gloomer, but she's a pragmatist, and I'm kind of not a pragmatist, and we work together really well. It's the same thing with your team in a business. And, both of those need to pull down the visionary, right? Both of those guys need to say, hey, that's probably impossible, for this reason or for that reason, or we're not quite there yet, or, we need to consider these other factors. You need those voices. And it's kind of interesting that you mentioned, that they sort of fall into three main buckets, because I think you're right. I think that's, probably about what it is. It's hard to make anything a formula, but that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's a quick way to stereotype, and again, it's not an all-encompassing. And we deal with stereotypes here. It's just how we do it, but and not all negative ones. Just want to clarify that.
We're AV guys, of course.
A few negative
stereotypes. Right.
Hey, all right.
They're not monotypes.
No, they're multi-types.
They're not polytypes. Right.
No, they're all over the place. But yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting to take, again, take some perspective. So easy for me to say, take some perspective from people that are learned, that view the world that are, unassociated way to what we're doing directly, but to kind of take their observations and like, hey, like, how does that apply to me, or how does that apply to us? And those categories were kind of fun. And even to his point, like, and to our point that we talked about here, like, it's not a one size fits all. You're not all in this one column because of this certain personality traits. But I agree with you. The balance of those kind of three angles, whether it's within your own personality or within a business, is really going to leverage those strengths. Like, again, we talk about him a bunch, but Lee Travis at Y Appliance is certainly a bloomer, right? He's out there creating it. He's out there making it happen. But the flip side of that is he's also a gloomer because he's holding his team accountable for the actions and the checks that he's writing through marketing and through the initiatives that he's creating. So just specific example that I would call out that anybody could look at their YouTube page or any of that stuff and sort of read what they're doing and say, oh man, I'd love to make, take some of that sparkle and put it into what I'm doing. Right. So,
sure.
And we need to find some other examples of people that call out.
Well, there's not a whole lot of dealers.
Just one that,
for what it's worth, right?
All right, fine. I was laying down on the ground. He kicked me right in the ribs.
It's only, it's just because of the shirts that really just give them the business all the time.
Yeah, that's right. It's fair.
But this does exist, and there's a difference here, and it's not just the CI thing, right? Like, you can kind of look.
No.
You could look across the map. You could look at a lot of things. I'm sure, again, by virtue of the fact that you're in CI, you probably work with a couple of different types of builders, right? So you probably have in your market or within the scope of people you work with, you probably have a builder who does some really amazing projects and really just, the stuff that they do, they're doing custom millwork, they're doing, custom exteriors and that sort of thing. And they're kind of, they're
a 2-story closet. That's a good one.
And they work with, architects who maybe push the limit, right? Because those two things attract each other, right? And then you probably have builders, again, who you work with, and nothing wrong with this, that are more formulaic, right? So they will either take exactly what the architect draws and do it exactly to spec, and it's exactly, what that is, what that design is.
They've got a business plan built around a spec in a home, right?
Yeah.
There's a dollar return that they're guaranteed if they can execute on certain set of plans or rules.
Yeah, and then there's a
Business
third
101.
where you've got a guy who probably doesn't work with an architect at all, and he's the guy who you bring in like, hey man, I need to put I want to put an extension on this thing. Yeah, no problem. We have somebody in our office who can draw this up to get it stamped and go from there, and that's a whole different personality. It's a lot of the same thing in CI, and you've got your dreamers, right? Like, you've got your maybe guild members or whatever. And these are the dudes, they do the marketing right. They seem like they stand maybe on a level above. And then you've got the guys who bang it out and they do a great job, and it's a machine. And then you've got guys who kind of fly by the seat of their pants a little bit. And that's okay too, right? Like, here's the person you call when, you want to just tick a box, or you want to go and you want it to work, but it's not going to be to this crazy extent, dollar wise or scope wise or vision wise, right? Like,
maybe your budget or your requirements don't reach that threshold to call the guild. Hey, I need some landscape audio
right
in my backyard. I don't think I need the guild out there trenching some speakers for me. I mean, I'd love to call them up. I wish that was a problem I had, but
sure.
Fair enough, right?
But it is, and these things tend to attract each other. Right? If you've noticed, the quote unquote, and again, I'm generalizing here, but the quote unquote higher end guys, the guys who think of themselves as maybe just a cut above, they tend to partner up with the best architects and the best builders and the best whatever, because it's kind of the same clientele. Same thing as you move across the spectrum, there's a hat for every head, right?
Agreed.
If that makes sense. So there's nothing wrong. Like, not everybody has to be just way out there. And in fact, it's really damn tough to get to that point. So last week we talked about finding your niche, very much what we were talking about. And,
right.
You need to be able to kind of identify what you are. And in a lot of ways, you need to be able to see what the overall theme is. Are you a Gloomer? Are you a Boomer? Are you a Zoomer? Are you,
or do you have too many of one thing on your team?
Right.
That's right. Like, we got a bunch of Gloomers and guys that are like, no, we can't do that. Well, that's limiting your opportunities. You're limiting your outlook. Right.
Sure.
You got the inmates running the prison or whatever, right? Wow. And I would say this, man, having been in that role, being the lead tech in a couple of organizations in my time, there were certainly some periods where I was like, dude, F that. We're not doing that. Like, what a pain in the ass. Like, we don't want to make that happen. And it becomes this like, well, we've sold this, so we're going to figure it out. Kind of scenario. And not to say that I had like a bad attitude about things, but there were certainly times when I was glooming about some decisions and things that we sold, right? But to dovetail into that, money prevailed, cooler heads, and you adapt and overcome, and we were better for it at the end of it. So I don't know, just my experience with being one of the key people on this list. I seem to be. I feel like I'm a Gloomer. That's where I live.
Did you say Gloomer?
No. Yeah, I don't know. Where? I mean, I think for you, you're Bloomer, right? You're more of a creative type.
I mean, I guess that's kind of where I find.
I mean,
myself.
If you would assess yourself, like I think for me, I'm way more pragmatic, way more like, let's make sure we can actually execute on this. Way more, detail oriented from a risk aversion perspective, as opposed to like, hey, I'm not living in the future. I know that. And certainly, I mean, I am creative, but I wouldn't say that I'm like charting some new stars or anything like that. When it comes to anything here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of where I've found myself. I guess if that makes sense. I don't know if I'd classify myself that way. I was very much, when I was in the field, I was kind of that guy that, okay, this TV absolutely cannot be any higher than this. This is,
right.
It's unconscionable if I put this in the wrong place, right? I am not going to be on the subreddit TV too high. And at the same time, like, the racks have to look, those wires have to look like railroad tracks, and I'll take weeks to do if I have to.
If they let you.
Yeah. Again, the other part of my personality is, you know what? This is what you're getting with me, and you can take it or leave it. So,
right. I've never heard that. I've never felt that way.
Never. No, absolutely. You've never heard that on every team call that you've ever been on with me every week of our existence together.
Yeah.
Hey, I made this, thing, we did this branding, and your criticisms are not valid.
That's fine.
That's really where we go.
I shut my fucking mouth a long time ago. So
that may not be the most healthy thing.
No.
But
you swallow your anguish down, swallow it, compartmentalize it, turn it into cancer later. It's fine. That's what we do.
Yeah, we metastasize the bad. We that's how we get it out of our. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, if I was half creative, if I was a Zoomer, I would have a much better way to record this podcast so that I'm not hearing an echo in my ear and watching, one frame per second in my monitor.
With all of the proceeds from the millions of T-shirts that we're going to sell.
That's a lot of candles.
On the Inside Integration store, the merch store, we will fund a Rodecaster or some cool deck that we can use to podcast from. So you don't have to use software. You can just use output to a file and go there.
Let me go off in the weeds a tiny bit. Yes, I absolutely had that available to me. It is very much the software side, unless I pony up to pay for like Riverside, which records on both sides. Sure. I'm stuck with what I got. And
well, I'm just here to be hypercritical because I am a Gloomer and I'm mad about it. I don't know. I was just trying to play my role over here. What can I do? Man, you are a popular guy. Getting all kinds of messages, getting all kinds of signals, smoke signals, like blinking lights.
Well, and that's the fun part, right? Is I get an email in Outlook, and then I get a ping on Teams that the content of the email is exactly the same as the thing I got on Pings. And just to drive the point home, then we get a text message referencing the Teams message, the Outlook thing.
So you're a Zoomer. You're living in the future, bud. Way to go.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, that thing is that the website that I like poured my soul into for a month is down right now. Not being a web person, I am just bad? Fielding messages.
I don't know.
So
yeah, it's fine.
Whatever. Anywho.
Well, on that note, we'd like to thank you guys if you listened all this way through to the end. We always love it when you can say that, I listened to that entire episode, and we appreciate the note at the end.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
That's like 42 minutes of your life that you can't get back. But hopefully you were behind the windshield of your car somewhere, looking out at the morning rain on your way, having a coffee, having a little laugh with us. So again, check us out on the at inside_integration Instagram page. Check us out on the Inside Integration YouTube page. We got our videos up there. Chris sends me funny pictures in the middle of the night all the time that I post on our Instagram feed. There might even be one of me up there as a smooth Canadian dressed as a Mountie. So you never know what you're going to find on our Instagram and our social media stuff. And again, we would love to see you guys with a shirt on, with a sticker, just if nothing else, just to make us laugh. Even if we don't see you in person, just order a silly shirt, take a picture of it, and we will post it on our social media feeds for everybody else to be jealous of and to realize that they need to get in on the joke. What can I tell you?
So one of the things I do now is, when we do shows with vendors and everybody's got their Pelican cases and everything else, I make sure I have a whole bunch of stickers because those cases.
Yeah, you're going to get sticker bombed for sure. It's going to be a thing.
Anywho. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.